On that morning, I was preoccupied with the care of the orchids in my conservatory, unaware of the circumstances that would befall me. I examined the roots of the bulbs that had been recently deposited on the ground as my hands explored the ground. As is customary, the day proceeded in a routine and tranquil manner until I experienced a severe backache. My second nephew, Maximo, unexpectedly appeared at that moment, and I was unsure of what would transpire. The greenhouse served as my sanctuary, following Raphael's departure from our household. It had become the sole location that could truly restore my spirit. However, on that particular day, everything appeared to possess a distinct nuance. Despite being 65 years old, it was not uncommon for individuals to make comments. "Amelia, what is the secret to your exceptional health at your age?" In reality, there was no significant secret. I was solely preoccupied with my personal health, maintaining the essence of feminine vitality, engaging in physical activity on a regular basis, and adhering to a balanced diet. Nevertheless, I must acknowledge that the sensation of isolation was profoundly ingrained in my being. Despite the fact that my physical attractiveness continued to draw attention, there was a vacancy within me that would not vanish. As I prepared to install one of the bulbs, I was abruptly struck by a severe backache. The intensity and surprise were so intense that all of the objects I was holding slipped from my grasp. To alleviate the distress, I attempted to calm down by briefly closing my eyes. However, this proved unsuccessful. The sensation of agony extended from my shoulder to my lower back, rendering me immobile and incapable of movement. I suddenly heard Maximo's voice without any prior notification. "Amelia, how are you doing?" Maximo, my 23-year-old nephew, possesses a visage that would be fit for a magazine cover, a muscular physique and broad shoulders. His intense eyes observed me with concern, while his brown hair shone in the sun's beams. Although he did not appear to be aware of it, he possessed an inherent attraction that captivated the attention of all. At that time, the entire energy of youth was directed toward providing me with assistance. My back was the precise location where I experienced the most severe discomfort. "There is an issue. I am unable to proceed. Are you prepared for the impending events?" Due to the rarity of this narrative, in this voyage the boundaries are obscured, emotions are interwoven, and confessions persist like silent whispers. At any given moment, an internal force may cause you to question your prior understanding. I encourage you to subscribe to my channel and activate the notifications if this is your story assignment, in order to provide me with your support. Sitting adjacent to me, Maximo leaned. He conveyed his intention to render aid. A sudden shudder that enveloped my entire being occurred when I felt the contact of his enormous palms on my shoulders. He extended an offer to administer a massage, which is typically advantageous, he added. He was unable to resist due to a lack of vitality. He was resolute in his pursuit of any method to alleviate the agony. However, the impact of his communication on me was truly unexpected. Maximo placed his palms on my back and began to apply a gentle pressure. I must confess that I had not felt this sense of connection in a long time. I passed through my tense muscles with robust fingertips that were unexpectedly soft. The sensation of agony gradually dissipated, giving way to a warm and unusual sensation that permeated my body. The loneliness that had been residing within me abruptly awoke, as if it had been asleep for an extended period. I let out an exhalation that was perhaps a bit more profound than anticipated. I attempted to say Maximo, but the syllables became lodged in my throat. I was unable to finish the assignment. He elected to maintain his silence and proceeded with the massage. The manner in which his hands caressed my back caused me to be acutely aware of each stroke. At that moment, I underwent a transformation that, in an unexpected manner, elicited both enthusiasm and dread. Maximo continued to massage my back with firmness and determination until he abruptly halted and bowed down to meet my gaze. "Amelia, the situation is grave," he stated with graveness and apprehension. "This issue cannot be resolved within the greenhouse. We will approach the fireplace to capitalize on the warmth, and I will provide you with a tub of cream to soothe your back. It is imperative that we address this situation." I briefly hesitated, but ultimately the excruciating agony dictated my decision. I sat with my head bowed, and he provided me with the necessary assistance to integrate myself. As he firmly grasped me, he cautioned me. The manner in which he embraced me was peculiarly comforting. It was a level of intimacy that I had not encountered in a long time. Upon entering, the room was illuminated by the golden glow of the bonfire's flame. I was immediately enveloped by a soothing sensation that alleviated some of the tension I was experiencing in my body. He promptly placed a blanket on the floor and instructed me to lie down with a hand gesture. He emphasized the significance of allowing the back to relax in a more comfortable position, his countenance betraying a serious demeanor. Despite the fact that his irises conveyed a certain degree of uncertainty, Pacinta will experience a sense of relaxation in her strained muscles with the application of a small amount of cream. Maximo was rubbing the cream between his palms to warm it, while I observed the heat of the bonfire entering my body as I lay down. I was unaware that I was suppressing a sigh when his hand caressed my shoulders, and I let it out. He assured him that he would soon feel better and that he would calm down in a tranquil voice. Not only did each touch of his hands alleviate my physical discomfort, but it also had a profound impact on me. I reawakened an internal force that I had believed to have been suppressed for an extended period of time. My thoughts became more agitated and acute as he stroked my back with his fingertips. Maximo's influence not only promoted healing, but also sparked a sense of awakening. I experienced a brief period of apprehension. Nevertheless, the agony was so intense that it was unbearable. Naturally, I consented instantaneously. Maximo gently grasped my arm and helped me stand. His warning to proceed with caution was audible as I approached. I felt a peculiar sense of protection as his powerful hands nearly enveloped me. I felt a connection with this child that I had not experienced in a long time as a result of the care he provided. The room was illuminated by the orange light of the chimney flames upon entering the home, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. The noise of the flames and the sensation of heat that permeated the room temporarily induced a state of tranquility. Maximo promptly placed a blanket on the floor and instructed me to lie down. He expressed that you should adopt a more comfortable posture and relax your spine, maintaining a serious demeanor with occasional moments of tenderness. Furthermore, I brought a small amount of salve to alleviate the tension in your muscles. Maximo rubbed the cream between his palms to warm it while pressing it in his hand, and I felt the heat envelop my body as I lay on the bed. He astonished me by placing his hands on my shoulder, which caused my breathing to accelerate uncontrollably. He murmured in a low voice, "Relax. You will now be in a more agreeable state." Nevertheless, I perceived a transformation with each contact. The hands of that individual not only provided me with physical solace, but they also rekindled emotions that I had suppressed for an extended period. My thoughts were soothed as he gently stroked my back with his fingertips despite the fact that they were also conflicting. Maximo's execution was distinguished by its firmness and delay, which allowed him to delve deeply into the emotional and physical realms. He commented with a warmth in his tone that immediately captivated me, despite the fact that his muscles are so rigid that they do not astonish me at all. "Amelia, you are making an excessive number of assumptions regarding the domestic responsibilities and the maintenance of the greenhouse plants. It is imperative that you also bear in mind your own health." My objective was to ensure that I was comprehended. "Maximo, the conservatory is my sanctuary." In the absence of his presence, he interrupted his gesture with compassion, stating, "I comprehend," despite the fact that they also caused me concern. I was unable to comprehend the full implications of his words, or perhaps I did, but I was unwilling to acknowledge it. He continued the massage session by gently descending his hands onto my back at that moment. Despite the fact that a distinct knot was formed within, the tension knots relaxed as a result of the warmth of his contact. A sense of both calm and dread was evoked by the sensation of his proximity. My voice was quivering as I articulated, "Maximo, you are genuinely providing invaluable assistance." "I am aware," he stated, this time with a more halted tone. "Nevertheless, all will be well. Amelia, please remain composed." It was clear that his statements exceeded mere suggestions. His proximity increased with each passing instant, much like the flames of a fire. Maximo's hands moved gingerly toward the lower portion of my back, the peculiar anxiety that began to invade me as I relaxed each muscle with his caresses. The heat moved inward with a greater intensity, in a paused but firm manner. An internal conflict emerged as a result of the perplexity that occupied my mind at that moment. It was challenging for me to maintain serenity, but I reminded myself that I had to do so. My heart began to beat with intensity as his warm palms descended toward my shoulders. Maximo's proximity was apparent, but the constraints of time were also discernible. Suddenly a shriek reverberated within me. "Amelia, this child is your second-degree nephew. It is not advisable to engage in that behavior." The room was completely illuminated by the pleasant light emanating from the fireplace. However, the temperature gradually increased to an unbearable level. My attention was inexorably drawn to Maximo as I watched him dry his forehead of sweat. His muscular torso, which was tanned by the sun and shone in the light of the fireplace, was suddenly revealed as the edge of his shirt ascended, resembling a sculpted work of art. I find it challenging to articulate my sentiments at that time. It had been a considerable amount of time since I had experienced such a strong sense of connection with an individual. As he lowered his shirt to the ground, he admitted that the heat emanating from the fire was excessive. Despite the fact that he appeared at ease, the intensity of his gaze rendered me completely immobile. Our gazes intersected at that precise moment. He expressed with a soft yet determined voice, "Amelia, you are also beginning to feel a lot of heat. Your mood will be exacerbated if you continue to wear that clothing. Please allow me to assist you. I am unable to articulate my emotions. I experience a sensation of being unable to expel my thoughts." I contemplated resisting. Nevertheless, the room's oppressive atmosphere and the heat's intensity had an unbearable effect on my epidermis. I regained my composure. Maximo stooped down in close proximity to me and began to seek for the lower edge of my shirt. My skin was touched by his warm palms. The contact caused a chill to run down my spine, albeit it was not chilly, but rather a warm sensation. He skillfully elevated my shirt, manipulating it gently until he finally removed it and placed it aside. At that instant, the atmosphere between us became more oppressive. His eyes briefly fixed on me before he abruptly averted them. Nevertheless, it was unnecessary to examine his face in order to comprehend the emotional distress that those expressions induce within me. The name Amelia was pronounced by Maximo with a gentler and deeper tone than it had been on previous occasions. "What is your current state of health?" I responded in the affirmative, albeit with a strained tone. I was unable to conceal the emotional turmoil that consumed me. The sense of comfort that emanated from Maximo's presence completely enveloped me, not only due to the temperature. "Come closer," he said while extending his hand. "I suggest that we rest on the sofa. You appear to be uneasy." In this location, I grasped his palm. I felt an intense current that had not been felt in a long time when our fingertips came into contact. I was securely held by his strong arms as he helped me to stand. Maximo's inherent protection was perceived as so evident and spontaneous that my inner concerns began to subside for a brief period. He assisted me in gingerly settling down upon my arrival at the sofa. He promptly occupied the seat adjacent to me, but he ensured that there was sufficient space between us. Nevertheless, the room was still tense. There was an unspoken truth between us that was so intricate, it may have been impossible to articulate. I endeavored to maintain my composure amid the intensity of his gaze, as I endeavored to regulate the internal unease I experienced. Nevertheless, it was apparent that an awareness of the intensity of our emotions was nearly inevitable on this evening. The silence between us intensified as we regained our composure, accompanied by the crackle of the bonfire. The intensity of my heartbeat was so intense that it was nearly audible in my thorax. Maximo's presence by my side had an effect on me, even in the manner of his respiration. Simultaneously experiencing anxiety and tranquility, when I was in close proximity to him, this was my experience. I momentarily directed my gaze, and for a brief period our gazes aligned. Something was perceived in his countenance, possibly a genuine interest, or something more enigmatic. It was unavoidable to overlook the gaze in his eyes, which was both tranquil and energetic in the presence of such closeness. He experienced the sensation that time had halted at that precise moment. Maximo gradually extended his hand in my direction. I felt a shudder as his fingertips touched mine. In spite of his mutism, the silence was replete with significance. He fixed his eyes on my lips for a brief period, and at that exact instant, everything took an unexpected turn. He gradually began to lean toward me. His respiration enveloped me with a warm sensation in the skin, as he was in close proximity. The voices within me abruptly ceased. There was no notion of goodness or malice. At that time, I only noticed Maximo's gaze and his proximity to me. I made the decision to close my eyes and approached him in a subtle manner. The sensation was as though time had halted as we pressed our lips together. Initially, the contact was delicate and inquisitive. However, it rapidly evolved into a more intense and potent sensation. The warmth he radiated, his breath, and the sensation of his lips created the illusion of being detached from reality. It appeared that the emotions of fear, loneliness, and yearning that he harbored within me were somehow connected to his. At that instant, the gesture was not restricted to a simple kiss. It embodied the expression of repressed longings, extended periods of silence, and potentially a secret connection. His hands delicately caressed my cheeks as the kiss intensified. His shoulders were automatically grasped by my palms. I could feel the warmth of his epidermis as it passed through my hands. Ultimately, we both separated ourselves simultaneously. We observed that our respiration was agitated as we crossed our eyes. Nevertheless, the bond between us was perceived with greater intensity than ever. A message was intended to be conveyed. Certainty was absent. Nevertheless, something was immediately apparent. After that night, our relationship would never be the same. I observed that I was experiencing breathlessness subsequent to the contact. My heart beat so vigorously that it appeared to emerge from my chest. I perceived an intense longing and an interrogation in Maximo's eyes when I met his gaze. During that instant, my mind was completely at rest. My body and my heart were now responsible for making the decisions. I replied, "Really?" with a quivering voice. "I have a clear understanding of my emotions. I yearn for you with all my heart. You are adored by it." Something within me ruptured as I articulated the words. The loneliness and anxieties that had accumulated over the years appeared to vanish in a single moment. The primary objective was to locate myself in this location, at this precise instant, adjacent to him. A momentary expression of bewilderment appeared on Maximo's face, which was subsequently replaced by a delayed smile. The warm atmosphere that enveloped me was reflected in his gaze. "I have affection for you." He articulated it in a gentle yet firm tone. "Amelia, I also harbor feelings of affection for you. Additionally, I endeavored to regulate my emotions. However, I am now incapable of resisting. I have a deep affection for you and aspire to be by your side." I was enveloped by the words he spoke, much like the literal. My heart was touched by each syllable. Maximo tenderly embraced my face and re-entered the room. This time there was no uncertainty. We were both aware of our aspirations. Our emotions were more powerful than any verbal expression when our lips reconnected. This moment was a turning point in my life. Maximo's affection, expressions, and presence. I did not intend to halt at that instant, despite my apprehensions. Nothing had ceased. I was entirely overcome by my emotions. At the time, we were enveloped by a thin sheet, which caused us to feel breathless and connected. With a slight expression on his face, Maximo sat by my side. Upon raising my head, I observed that our clothing was dispersed across the floor. The ambience of the evening was so surreal that it appeared to be a dream. Maximo's countenance was still radiated by an attractive smile as he addressed me. His thumb barely touched my lips, while his hand gently caressed my face. He stated, "Amelia, I would not change it for anything at this time," in a deep and gentle voice. A whirlwind of emotions that were still present in me compelled me to turn to him, and I conveyed it with a sense of gratitude. "Maximo, I am grateful for your assistance." I had not experienced such a sense of isolation in a long time. Nevertheless, your youthfulness, imposing presence, and allure genuinely captivated me. My pupils did not convey sincerity, nor Maximo's smile, which was characteristically charming and radiated from his face, was exhibited as his lip curled upwards. "Amelia, you are cognizant of your attractiveness." "Drina," he articulated, "I am not referring solely to your physical appearance. The experience of sharing moments with you is distinctive. Your amiable demeanor, your candor. Each item contributes to my enhancement of self-esteem." It was impossible to avoid his gaze, his expressions, or his eye contact. I desired to immortalize that night in my memory, due to the intensity of the situation. I conveyed myself with sincerity. Maximo, I depended on you. There was nothing else I desired more than to have you by my side. As Maximo's fingertips caressed the edge of the sheets, a gentle smile appeared on his face. Amelia, I will be returning to this location frequently from now on. He articulated himself with determination and candor. You can depend on me at all times. I offer you these moments solely with the intention of contemplating you. At that instant, I felt as though a new path was emerging in my life. The profound loneliness and heavy burdens that I had previously encountered were gradually dissipating. The presence of Maximo by my side provided me with a sense of security and tranquility that was extremely reassuring. I resolved to close my eyes, take a deep breath, and approach his warm embrace with a little more intimacy. The commencement of my voyage occurred last night.